Hey buddy, it's Peter, and this is the 2025 Yamaha MT-09 SP. Probably one of the more desirable bikes sitting here at McLean Sports right now. And as I mentioned in all of our videos lately, I'm covering as many 2025 bikes as I possibly can. In many instances, that means covering a bike that has been unchanged for years, but this one has been changed and updated. And like I said, it is going to be highly desirable. It will not be around long, of course, because it's going to be something that people are going to get out on it and they're just going to take it home for sure. This is a bike that is a really, really good bike. And if you've seen my Tracer 9 review that I did a few weeks ago, some of the components here are similar to that, but this one puts it in a lightweight, compact package that gives you uprated suspension on, different suspension than that. It's a whole different package and it is super, super cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through this bike in detail, talk about what makes it special, what makes it unique, and we're going to try to show you things that the other videos aren't showing you. And if that sounds good, we try to do that with all kinds of bikes here on this channel. So do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Obviously that helps, but if you really want to help my channel out as well, just watch to the end. That really helps out. And feel free to leave comments. Those are always great as well. All right, let's get going with this review. So the first thing I like to do is put a bike in a class. Now Yamaha calls this the Hyper Naked, which if you're online dating may be a very good thing to get what you want, and it may be a very bad thing to attract what you want. But that's what they call this. What I call this is a very refined sport bike that has a nice upright seating position that you can ride all day. This one's got cruise control, so it's going to give you a really all-day comfort, all-day riding ability, but tons of versatility. You want a wheelie machine? This is it. You want something you can take to the track? This is it. You want something you can ride casually on the weekends? This is it. It really is pretty versatile, but it's also very refined. It's got a really strong engine that everybody loves. It's upgraded with better suspension and front and rear. It's got great brakes. It's got all the kinds of things you want for a discerning rider, you could say, but someone who wants to go quickly and be in control. So a lot of stuff going on here. Let's start at the front wheel and work our way through. So I always say if you want to know the intent of a motorcycle, you can look at its front wheel, and that's where we always start in our videos here. So the front wheel tells us what the manufacturer intended for this bike, and right off the bat you see some really good stuff. First of all, Bridgestone Battle Axe Hyper Sport S23F. These are the very good road tires that are capable on the track for sure, very grippy, just sort of the premium tire right from the factory on this thing. You don't have to upgrade to get great tires on this. And then of course you got the dual disc brakes, that's all standard, but of course they're Brembo, radial mount of course. So you've got brakes that not only look cool, but they also allow repeated high speed stops without fade. That's one of the big things with Brembo. The other thing is it can be a little bit lighter weight than some, so that's worth pointing out. But those Brembo brakes are going to give you great feel and just in regular riding, but also repeated high-speed stops without fade, and that's a big thing if you're taking this to the track or riding this pretty hard. The other thing you're going to see is some extra things here. You've got upgraded KYB suspension, so this is, of course, the gold fork tubes indicate that they're upgraded. Fully adjustable forks. What's cool here is the stanchions here are not chrome. They're actually like a black chrome, so it's just as smooth, just as as regular, it's the same as regular suspension down here, but it is a black chrome, so it's very cool coloring here. Again, these are little details you notice when you really get into the nitty-gritty like I do, but it's just kind of cool. It shows that, hey, we went premium here. We're not trying to cheap out in any way. We're trying to give you what you need to have a high-performing bike. The rest is pretty standard stuff. Lightweight wheels, of course, you get that from Yamaha all the time, sort of a minimal type mudguard or fender here, which is going to cover, of course, the shocks there. We're going to talk a little bit more about the shocks in a second when we go around, but first, let's head over to the engine. So taking a look at the heart of this bike, you have a lot to like. First of all, this is the CP3 engine, the 3-cylinder engine that literally everybody loves. I've reviewed this engine a little bit on the Tracer 9 before, but of course this package is much lighter and you've got that lightweight frame. That's one of the big things of this bike. At 425 pounds or so, this is a very light bike, especially given the power. You don't find that kind of power in a bike that is this comfortable, this versatile, and this lightweight very often. So you got that CP3 engine, really strong power everywhere, great sound. Like I said, everybody loves it. The frame is in and then comes out here. So again, it's all trying to be narrow. We're gonna talk about that when we sit on the bike in a second here. The other thing is no exhaust pipe out the side. All of your, if you leave the exhaust stock, all of the weight is down there. There's no side pipe or anything like that. What that does is, again, contributes to handling. All of the heavy components are down low with nothing up here, keeping the weight light, keeping the weight weight centralized, and you can really see the centralized forward weight here. You've got a shock up here, which we'll talk about in a second here, but everything's very much pushed forward and low on this bike, which is going to make it also feel light, even though it is light. Again, you got a nice swing arm down there. Everything on this bike is strong, stiff, and lightweight. The Olin shock at the rear is also a really nice upgrade. I've got an Olin shock on my bike, and it really does a great job of keeping the bike in line. If you keep in mind that, a regular car or any other vehicle, the suspension works up and down. But on a motorcycle, as you lean, the bumps are still up and down, but the bike has to face it in a different way. So the precision in suspension on a motorcycle can really transform the way it rides. And this one's got great suspension up front and great suspension out back. This is your preload adjuster here, but there's a piggyback on the opposite side. So again, they're balancing it all out, fitting it all in the frame. So you've got that large shock right inside there where you can't really see it from this angle. Preload adjustment here, and then the piggyback on the other side, which again, really kind of makes everything compact and forward. So high quality shocks, great engine, lightweight design. Let me just show you what it looks like with me on here, and then we'll work our way through the rest of the bike. So one of the things I love about this bike is its approachability for a bike with this kind of power. Now, I'll admit my bike isn't a direct competitor to this, but I drive the Kawasaki Z900 RS SE. It also has the Brembo brake package, it has an Öhlins rear shock, and although it's retro styled, it's essentially a competitor to this. The regular Z900 would be a competitor to this, and the SE model as well. So when I get on my personal Z900 RS SE, the bike I'm most familiar with, I can tell you it feels much heavier than this. It is much heavier, but it also feels much heavier than this. This thing feels very compact. You've got the more modern wide seat. Now the seat is square and upright. It's not pushing you into the tank or anything like that, so that's a really nice thing to have. And then what I like is there's a ton of visual width here. The seat or the tank comes way out and goes wide. You'll see that as we film in this area, but it's really narrow at the center point here. And what that means is it feels like a smaller, lighter weight, more nimble bike. So you have the lightweight feeling of this bike anyways, and then you have that sort of narrow feeling where you really feel like you're in control. You're not spreading your legs wide for this oversized tank or anything like that. So what you really have here is something that feels much smaller than it actually is and keeps it feeling very, very nimble. So again, lightweight is instantly noticeable. You can see the riding position here. Like I said, this has cruise control. You can move around a little bit on the seat. The seat's fine. It's what I call supportive firm. It's not a super plush seat, but it is not a rock hard seat in any way. So it's also wide enough and well positioned for me. So you can see a slight lean forward here, which is good on a naked bike. You have that little bit of lean into the wind here. Obviously, if you want to get into a tuck position, you can do that. You've got a nice flat tank top position here. But the regular riding position is going to be really comfortable. Add in the cruise control. You've got an engine that's made to cruise. That's why they put it in the, or capable of cruise. That's why they put it in the Tracer 9. But it's also, of course, incredibly sporty. So whether you're heading to the track on this bike and you want to really get low and feel like you're one with the bike, you can do that. Or if you're going on a longer ride and you just want to get comfortable with the cruise control, this bike's made to do it, and the engine is so versatile, it's just going to be good in all of those situations. So again, there's the riding position. I'm about 6 feet tall. You can see I'm flat-footed with both feet here in the front of the thing. I could move a little bit forward to even get better flat-footed. But in this position here, the riding position, I should mention that the foot pegs are in a slightly different position than the regular MT-09. They have a 2-position setting here on this bike, so that's one of the upgrades you get here. But again, very good, very comfortable with your legs in a sporty position. The other thing I noticed, because of the narrowness of the bike, not only are the foot pegs high, but because the bike isn't that wide, they don't have to be as high. They're just tucked in nicely, and that allows you that cornering clearance right down on the racetrack if you wanted to. So you can really feel how versatile this bike is just by sitting on it. And again, it's a special bike. That SP, I don't know if SP stands for special, but it should, because this is a unique bike for a very reasonable price given the equipment that you have on it. All right, let's keep moving through. So over here on the clutch side of the bike, I just want to show you, I'm in a wide angle view just to show you where we are, but I want to show you that piggyback shock or piggyback piece of the shock, the remote piggyback and remote preload adjustment. Again, all to keep you, again, a good size piggyback. So you've got high-end shocks there. The other thing I should show you there is the quick shifter here. 6-speed transmission, of course, and there's your foot pegs if you want to see them there. Typical race bike, no rubber padding on here. So again, we're all talking about lightweight here. So all of this is good. Even with those, they're going to be nice and smooth with that CP3 engine. So let's work our way up here and take a look at the dash and controls. So taking a look at the dash and controls of this bike, one thing I like is you do have a handlebar that's going to give you places to mount a GPS. Not that you need one. This has connectivity to an app, which will allow you some navigation on there. Some people still like to have a GPS instead, but the other thing I want to show you here is the ignition switch. You'll see that there is no key there. This is a keyless ignition. So I'm going to pop out here for a second and show you the key. Now you might be wondering, if that's a keyless ignition, how do we do things like the fuel tank or something like that, which you can see is still the traditional style keyed. Well, that's pretty simple. You're just going to pop this button out like that and pop your key out of the back. So we're just going to put that back in. This is the button I was sliding. You can see it sort of clicks there, but that is your key fob. So that stays in your pocket and you turn this to start everything up. So let's reposition, let's get on the dash here, and we'll get you a look at what the dash has and how to work it with the controls. So I'm going to give full disclosure right now, there is a trick to using this, and I don't know exactly what it is. I had a tiny bit of trouble turning that key. I got to figure out what that trick is, but once you figure it out, it's very easy. I'm not sure what I did correctly to get it started. So that's just full disclosure. Some people are going to like those key fobs, some people aren't. You can let me know in the comments. I'm sure I didn't design it, I just use it. And again, I found generally they're pretty easy to use once you figure it out. And people are worried about security with that kind of stuff. I'm not. These things are pretty secure. All right, so one thing I want to point out right now is I can tell by looking at my screen that this is washing out the colors of this dash. This has a much nicer color dash than what you're seeing. You can see you've got your quick shifter label up there right below your gear indicator. You've got the traditional dash that you're seeing on the MT-07, that you're seeing on the Tracer 9. These are 2025 bikes that I've done this year. And then you've got your ride modes up the top where it says street right there. We'll cycle through some of them. Street goes to sport, goes to custom 2, goes to custom 1, goes to rain, and back to street. So lots of ride modes in here. And then what I like down here is there's a number of things that you can have. Let's go through like the odometer in the center there. So there's odometer in the center. You can switch to trip 1, trip 2, trip F, which is your fuel, instant fuel efficiency, average fuel efficiency, your range in kilometers, your coolant temperature, your air temperature, your trip time, and you see your fuel gauge there before we go back to odometer. You'll notice that these were duplicated. Every one of these sections can be set to any one of those things I just sent you through. So you can have 3 different displays, whether you want to do instant fuel efficiency, average fuel efficiency, or I like to do outside temperature, trip, for instance, and fuel efficiency, whatever you want. You can set those, so you always have the option of setting any one of these to any one of those things that I went through, which is good. I believe there's also another screen here. I've just seen this bike for the first time, so I'm hoping to be able to come back and do a further review, maybe just a dash review for some of those that want it, some of you that may want it, but we'll cycle through that in the future. We're getting a little long on this video. Let me show you the controls and a couple other differences with this bike. Actually, while we're here, let's just come out for a second, keep it in the same shot. We're going to try to get in here on the top of the fork tubes. It's going to be tricky to do. Maybe we'll come around the front here. Yeah, let's do that. Sorry for my poor camera work here, but let's just zoom in there while we can. Both fork tubes fully adjustable here. So this KYB suspension, you've got like full adjustability up top and bottom here. And that's just part of what's going to be really good for just riding comfort, riding style, but whether you take it to the track or anywhere else, you can tweak it. And that's part of the fun of owning a fun, quick bike. So you've got both fork tubes, identical tops there to adjust when you want. All right, let's take a quick look at the controls that control the display. So as we take a look at the controls that you see on screen right now, you can say, hey, that looks exactly like the MT-07 for 2025, and it is. Above it is some extra controls that we'll show you, or actually between an area there is an extra controls we'll show you in just 1 second. But I want to show you these signal lights. So there's a very light tap in here. You can see me barely moving it. That very light tap is just 3 flashes. If you push it all the way in, that'll stay on. But these are self-canceling turn signals. So again, have a very light tap to just hit 3 flashes, or you can hit it all the way for a normal signal light. And it is self-canceling. Obviously, to cancel it, I think you switch the other way. Maybe hit the same way. I think it hits the other way. Anyways, if you had to cancel it yourself, you can. But very cool to have those. Like I said, MT-07 has those this year as well. Horn down low, hazard lights down low. That's all stuff I like to see. And then the way you work the control system here or the display system is a very simple system with good feeling control. So this takes you back or to the home button, and these out here are not buttons. This is a joystick that moves every which way and feels very positive. Sometimes people complain that, oh, maybe I'm accidentally moving up or I'm accidentally moving sideways when I meant to hit it down. So you can press it in and every which way. That works well. Now what the MT-07 doesn't have that the Tracer 9 has, this is a little different hand grip here, is the cruise control up over here. And then there is a switch out here which you can tap forward for turning your high beams on. You can pull to flash to pass, otherwise it's just your headlights. So the MT-07 doesn't have the cruise control. MT-09, of course, does. Same with the Tracer 9, but that's what's different here. All the rest of these controls are on all sorts of bikes. You do have adjustable clutch lever, you have an adjustable brake lever as well, so those are all nice to have as well. Over on the far side, let's just come across here. We'll go wide angle for a second so we can show you. Very simple controls, but very important controls over there. Let me just try to zoom in. Oh, we're gonna miss it, so we'll just go here up. Sorry about the terrible camera work. You do have the kill switch and the mode switch. So when we switch through rider modes, you can switch here. Now in the display, you can set up what those two custom rider modes are. If you want one that's really aggressive for the track, or you want maybe the sport mode with more controls, or you want to set up a different rain mode, those kind of things, you can put those in those two custom modes. But again, this switches through the street, rain, the two custom modes, all the stuff that you would need just right there on the throttle side. So very simple controls, which is all what I like to see. A lot of functionality with simple controls usually makes it a very good system. All right, just to prove that this key is actually easy to work, we're just gonna tap it down, turn it to the side, there we go. You'll see the signal lights flash. As you turn this bike on, the signal lights do flash. That makes it a little bit unique. And then you have your driving lights down here, so your daytime running lights, and then the headlight there. I don't know if I can get it to flash for you. No, it's not on unless I start the bike up, which I don't wanna do right now. This is gonna be somebody's bike. But you do have a single headlight that does sort of the multi-direction. Now, I will be fully honest with you. It looks terrible on camera. For whatever reason, this section with the screws in here and the screws up here, when I focus just in on that on camera, it looks not as good. But a lot of people here, and myself included, are complimenting this bike in person. So you have to reserve judgment when you see this in pictures and try to see it as a cohesive thing in person. And I think a lot of you will like it. Again, these bikes are a little bit controversial. Not everybody likes this modern style, but it is definitely a sporty, aggressive look in person, and it's not looking great on this camera angle, I'll admit that. All right, let's talk about who this bike is for. So in a world where the regular MT-09 exists, and there's the MT-10 and the MT-10 SP, why would you get this bike? Well, to me, this is kind of perfection in a lot of people's street riding area. The MT-10, for most people, it's too powerful. It's unnecessary. It's bragging rights for sure, but it's just not necessary. This one still has more power than you'll ever need, which is what you want in a powerful bike, but it's also very lightweight. And then I'm someone who genuinely likes great suspension. Now, that doesn't mean that every bike I have has to have that, because every motorcycle is a compromise, and sometimes it's fun to just ride something that's super basic. But if you're stepping up into the MT-09 and you're thinking, hey, I got a little bit extra money to spend, going for this suspension upgrade, I think, is going to be worth it if you're a discerning person who wants that extra performance. I know that there's definitely a difference in the Olin suspension on my bike versus the non-Olin suspension on the same bike from the Kawasaki lineup that I have. This one's a better Olin shock than mine. So again, it's about that precision. It's about going to those bumpy corners and not just feeling tire grip, but feeling suspension grip, knowing that that rear end is as solid as can be. And same thing with the front, knowing that you can dive in that corner, load up the brake, and you've got that precise control on the suspension. So that's a piece of it. And if you were to just upgrade suspension on this bike, it'd probably be worth it. But there's little upgrades here and there. Like I said, the foot pegs are slightly different. There's just a refinement about this bike that's slightly different. Little pieces and parts. The key is kind of a cool thing. Some people are gonna like it, some people aren't. But this thing has a number of minor tweaks as well that, to me, if you've got that little extra cash, makes this well worth spending. Would I go to the MT-10? Personally, I wouldn't. If you would, great. But I think this is what a lot of people want when they want to move up through getting a really, really nice bike for a fairly reasonable price. That's what you want. This is where you want to end up with. It's just a very well-made bike. The fit and finish is very good. The electronics are very good. The simplicity of working it is very good, which is also a thing. And then again, throwing on great suspension, great tires, great brakes, all of that makes this thing, everything about the feel. And the engine itself, that CP3 engine. So every piece that you touch, every piece that you interact with on this bike is premium feeling or very fun, fun engine, powerful, all that kind of stuff. But also, there's a difference between powerful and a fun engine, and this one is both. And that's, I think, the mix that people are looking for. So when you talk about a great, desirable motorcycle, it's very difficult to pick anything on this bike that you wouldn't find desirable. Obviously, the Tracer 9 is going to tour better, and it's got a lot of the same stuff. That's an option for you if that's where you want to go. Very similar price on that Tracer 9 to this, because this one has the upgraded suspension, a lot of differences in there. But As far as a premium naked bike, sport bike type thing, this is all the premium bike most of us ever need for a very reasonable price. And it's almost impossible not to recommend buying this bike. Great bike. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. Just really great, really impressive that I've seen it. I will do more with this in the future, so stay tuned. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.